Good evening and welcome again back to the Velocity of Now with me, your host, Thomas Sheridan. It's December 7th, 2016. I told you I wouldn't be disappointing you with pushing out some shows before Christmas as time comes in. I'm amazed at how much free time I've had since I stopped bantering on Facebook, although I have been posting links there that are relevant to the video I did yesterday on the Pizzagate sort of retraction. I now believe. Well, let's just put it this way: we are living in a remarkable moment at this time in history. Literally, reality is being torn asunder and being replaced. I'm having incredibly vivid dreams that I've never had in quite a few months. Things feel strange. People are acting strange. Everything's on edge. There's a strange weather phenomenon as well. There seems to be mist everywhere. There was a weird mushroom-shaped dome mist that appeared in Wales yesterday, and in Scotland there was a rainbow mist, a mist bow or a fog bow that appeared, a rainbow made of fog. Absolutely beautiful. Check it out. And here last night over this part of Ireland, the entire sky was completely a yellow amber color, and it wasn't low cloud reflecting streetlights because it was that color over the mountains, and it was that color way out into the Atlantic. And one of the things you do when you first practice magic is you do a thing called cloud busting, where you try to alter the shape of clouds with your mind. Now, clouds do naturally change in form, but the ultimate litmus test is to make a cloud appear in a blue sky. The reason for this is that water vapor, as we know from Dr. Emoto's experiments, is the easiest, shall we say, matter that our minds can manipulate. You can manipulate steam and mist and cloud, especially a small white cloud in a fully blue sky. You can grow it in size after a while when your powers of telekinesis and magic become much more powerful, because water vapor is actually the easiest substance to manipulate with your consciousness. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. When you think about "we are water," you know that famous speech by Bruce Lee on, I think it was on the Dick Cavett show, where he says, "Be like the nature of water, my friend." And that's because we are water. That's where brains are water. We're composed very much of water. Our life on this planet is dependent upon water. So we have a connection there. That's not surprising and we still don't fully understand the complete properties of water. Water is very different from place to place. Yes, it's two hydrogen atoms to one oxygen atom, but that only gives us the molecular structure. It does. Water, when you test it in different parts of the world, is quite remarkable. Like the heavy water in Norway that the Third Reich was collecting in order to turn into an atomic bomb. This is how strange water is. The isotopes, everything. We just don't know the nature of water, and it's these mists, these strange mists, these strange cloud formations, these fog bows or these fog domes. This is all part of the disruption in the matrix. This is all part of the disruption in the field. You'll often find that signs appear in the sky. This is what flying saucers are. And funny enough, I saw my first UFO a few weeks ago. Now, that's looking back on it now, this is part of this enormous rip, convulsion, tearing that's happening in the matrix. Carl Jung is still the only one who speaks about flying saucers from day one. That makes the most sense of all. When human beings are faced with crisis or changes in the world, they start to see signs in the sky. There will be enormous UFO activity, especially since the election of Trump and Brexit, because these cause fears, irrational fears in irrational people. And they have a natural instinct for salvation. So these lights appear in the sky. We call them aliens today. In the past, they were angels or they were demons. But what they are is human consciousness projecting itself into the water, matter, or plasma up in the sky. It's magic, really. And it's a nice show is about trash magic. And it creates effects and phenomena. It's us. What these phenomena are is our fears looking back at ourselves. That's what they really are. Now, this is why I don't have any fears at the moment, but I'm fundamentally aware of this. If anything, I'm extremely positive at the moment, even though you see things like the horrors behind Pizzagate and other things coming out. It doesn't matter. This is what, the darkest shadow is cast by the brightest light. So you should always hold on to that this is ultimately a good thing. Reality has to reorganize itself, just like the leaves have to fall off a tree, just like the body has to decay. It has to recycle itself. It's part of the natural order of things. The immaterial world, the world of the psyche, the world of consciousness, the world of imagination, dreams, art, and magic is subject to similar forces. It will have to regurgitate and change itself, decay, rise again, and realter itself. And you should be blessed that we're living in an age that we're witnessing this for one amazing reason. We're probably the first generation, because of what we've learned on the internet, have the ability to ride this wave, to actually cruise along with it and be part of the change, be part of it. I mean, you just look at what Hillary Clinton was taken down by magicians, sages, witches, magi, and shaman all over the world, holy people all over the world who knew how dangerous she was and wanted Trump to win so she wouldn't get in. Isn't it? They were all Republicans. That's like a simple childlike version of the world. But this was the first great magical battle I'd seen in my life. I was born long after World War II, so the magical battle of Great Britain, the Unfortunate, and the Lewis Spence, and what you had on the Third Reich side, the Ariosophy Society, and all this stuff. This, which began in Munich in 1919 on Walpurgis Night. This is all with the Thule Society. This is all something I'd missed out on, and things have been kind of playing. There's a bit of this in the '60s, but I was only a baby then, and now I'm seeing it in my own lifetime manifesting, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted to see this happening. We're on the edge of the abyss, but we're also looking at what I believe a new renaissance, a new renaissance that's coming to humanity. But we have to kill off the old first. We have to destroy the old first. And part of this destruction is understanding. It's the understanding. Now get ready to click on loads of links tonight, because I'm going to fill the page below, the descriptions below this, with tons and tons of links. Now, yesterday I told you I made a video on my open source occult TV YouTube channel, which I hope you will subscribe to, because there's lots of documentaries and films going to be coming up on that soon. So I'll post a link to the Pizzagate and Podesta Occult Forces I Was Wrong film I made yesterday. And if you haven't seen it, I guarantee it'll probably blow your mind. And have a check at that, and please subscribe to that specific channel along with Thomas Sheridan Arts. I'm going to be moving the occult work and that kind of magic stuff, migrating it more and more, as well as it'll be like a documentary channel as well. So I'll be putting, unlike Thomas Sheridan Arts, it'll be more like completed films will be put there. So please subscribe to that channel. Now that article has got very good reception from all the people I've seen. Having a quick look here on Facebook, it's 19 shares all off the bat, and just on my page, and everyone else has shared it from other places. So it's very interesting. Yeah, we're definitely, people are coming into consciousness, so as to speak, in this level, and this stuff is real. I mean, look. How many times do you have to know that? What proof do you need that pedo rings exist? But I won't go around accusing anyone of being involved in nefarious activities unless I have hard evidence. There was no hard evidence for Hampstead. There was no hard evidence for Holly Greig. So I don't push them. There's very good hard evidence and subjective and anecdotal evidence that you can point together to say that something very, very bizarre is going on with Pizzagate, the Brighester brothers, and the whole insider circle in Washington, D.C. We know from that Yorkshire TV documentary that was banned from the 1990s, on the night it was about to be broadcast, to show that literally the Reagan administration, not Reagan himself, but all around that administration, was one gigantic high-profile paedophile ring, and involving the Catholic Church and things like Boys Town. Now, we know the Catholic Church has a horrible history of this. We know that people in power are generally become perverted because they can have anything they want, and they just want more and more depravity. And we know pedophiles exist. I mean, anyone who grows up, pedophilia is a huge problem in poor neighborhoods and rural neighborhoods. Thank God I've never been molested or anything like this, but the neighborhood I grew up in, pedophilia was not uncommon. You'd have like night watchmen in buildings, or supervisors, or janitors, what you call them in America, in the tower blocks that I lived in, and they would have little boys all hanging out in their little offices under the buildings, and you'd hear stories from other kids. So you'd hear stories. So pedophilia is not uncommon among the poor. So that doesn't mean it's not. We all encounter. I'm sure suburbia, awesome suburbia, ordinary suburbia is full of this. Respectable suburbia is full of this. But we also be very careful, because they deliberately feed this stuff to stupid people. Stupid people are easily turned on and made insane by this. So you have to be very careful. You cannot be rushing in there screaming. People, a lot of them can't read and write. A lot of them are dysfunctional. They're drug addicts, alcoholics. They're on disability or welfare. A lot of them would be on. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. If you put out peanut information, you get monkey followers. So you have to be careful with all this stuff. So that's why we say no witch hunts, no screaming down the streets, no attacking pediatricians because they this stuff. This is all about intelligence and detachment and non-sensationalism. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, just because there's absolutely no evidence that Hampstead and Holly Greig is real, doesn't mean I don't believe that those rings exist. Of course, Dunblane, for example, is one that's full of where all the kids were shot in Scotland. There's some dodgy things going on around that. Pedophile pornography rings involving politicians and everything. Yes, it's real when it's real, but it's not when it's just sensationalized. And I told you about the satanic panic. Basically, if you're dealing with anyone who constantly uses the term satanic for this, you're dealing with an idiot. Because that's not what Satanism is. That's not satanic. They're dealing with satanic panic stuff from the 1990s that was pushed out there. It was put out there, and it was put out there to help to protect the likes of Cyril Smith and the likes of Jimmy Savile by blaming the poor and and keeping the heat off the top. But things have changed now. It's now flipped the other way around. Those of us in the middle who are kind of sensible, I hope, have actually woken up, and you'll always get the ones you'll see satanic pedophiles everywhere, and we ignore them. But the intelligent people, and there's also kind of delusional psychotics who'll make up stories that they're victims as kids or gangsters. That's all nonsense, all that stuff. Now these people they're unwell people that don't what's the word, prejudice against them. They're people who, for whatever reason, have a really bad type of delusional psychosis that they're being gang stalked and stuff, or they see pedophiles or psychopaths everywhere. These are the kind of people that during the witch hunt days would have grabbed their perfectly innocent neighbor and burned them alive. So they're only dangerous when they have the mob. Thank God these people don't have a mob, so they're not dangerous to innocent and normal people. But what all this is, things like the satanic panic of the 90s and all this thing of screaming about satanic pedophiles everywhere and all this stuff, this is all the reflection of this thing called trash magic. Now, trash magic is a term I invented a while back. Actually, when I wrote the book, The Anvil of the Psyche, and I introduced people into the idea of how. There'll be a link below if you want to buy it. It's a cheap book. Into the idea of how we are, things like the occult and esoteric ideas, going right back to ancient Greece classical mythology, are still used to manipulate us. And one of the examples I cited, and she was quite early in her career, was Lady Gaga, who we'll talk about more in the show later. But I want to talk about how trash magic is very, very real and also very powerful. It shows up in the most surprising places. And I became very aware of its power as a child watching things like glam rock. I used to watch the Top of the Pops and see the glam rock bands. I can remember being very emotionally and psychologically affected by a poster I had from some pop magazine in the 70s as a kid, and it had David Bowie when he had the circle on his forehead. It wasn't Aladdin Sane, it was the other one. It was around that period, and he's wearing a silver thing, and he had lipstick, and he had eyeliner, And I can remember it's about 9 years old. I was a Bowie fan from when I was nine when I bought the single Life on Mars. And I was like trying to put that circle on my head with my mother's makeup and with my own like watercolor paint set, markers and stuff. And it was trash magic. I had looked at a picture of Bowie on my wall and he had altered reality for me. So he took me out of being a little boy who played with soldiers and model trains and that kind of thing. Fucking, that's still the same way, kind of, but took me out that little boy reality and threw me into this sort of magical reality, this Aladdin Sane, Ziggy Stardust, Major Tom reality. And that was trash magic. It wasn't deliberately done by him to alter me. When I say trash, I don't necessarily mean it in a disparaging way. It's just that it's like recycling trash. It's like finding trash and building artwork from it. This is what trash magic is like. It's not just trashy, but it's also a kind of an idea of taking something that seemingly has no power or just as throwaway and it becomes something remarkable. And that would be a case of that. Now, another idea would be drag queens. Now, it might sound funny when you hear me saying that drag queens are magical. I got news for you. Drag queens are incredibly magical. I'm absolutely spellbound by drag queens. Ever since I used to go to Panto as a kid, pantomimes, and you'd have always a man dressed up as Mother Goose singing a song or some other kind of female character, Dick Whittington. And there's something about a man wearing that makeup, especially if he's tall and built like a man, that transforms you out of this reality. Of course, there's a long history of this, everything from hermaphrodites to castratos, and all the way back to the satyrs of the ancient Viking world. Well, not that ancient, but of the Viking world. And the Greek mystery players, you would have the cross dressers, the transvestites. They transform you. Transvestites transform you out of the normal reality and into another kind of reality using this kind of trash magic. It's a very powerful thing. Now, I got into trouble last week by saying I only believe there's two genders in this world. There's male, female, and even things like hermaphrodites are birth defects. That's a mutation. It's not a real, it's like Down syndrome. It's not a real third gender. And you have all this craziness of all these unstable people who are just, they're lost, who have all these like 30 odd genders you have in places like in New York. But that doesn't mean I'm against the idea of cross dressing and transvestites because I see the power of that. You remember that film, Priscilla, the Queen of the Desert, from the Australian film about the three drag queens? Fantastic movie that were traveling across Australia doing a drag act. And there's one point in the film where they go to see this sacred Aboriginal site and they dress up in these unbelievable, Terence Stamp was in the film, unbelievable outfits that were like drag queen bling out there to the absolute extreme. And they walk into this incredible barren wilderness of the Australian outback dressed like this to look upon this area that's sacred to the Aborigines. And I was thinking to myself, watching that, that is probably one of the most spiritual scenes I have ever seen in a movie. Now, some of you are going, transvestites? Yes, because it transformed reality on the screen in front of you. It was a classic example. You were what is more unlikely to happen in your life than the sight of three huge drag queens dressed in silks flowing sequins blowing in the wind, standing in front of a remote Australian mountain range in the heart of Aborigine country. It doesn't exist. You're transformed out of the reality that was trash magic. It wasn't meant as a magical act as such. It was meant as great cinema. But that actual, I remember watching that scene, and especially when the helicopter pans around. Go watch the scene yourself if you can find it on YouTube. It is spectacular. I can remember living in New York, going down the Lower West Side, and seeing the drag queens down there, and they were huge guys, often 6 feet tall. There's something about the way they wear the makeup. It's incredibly powerful. The big wigs, the eyeliner, and then the voices that they have, and the big male hands. I'm not talking about the kind of like ladyboy lipstick ones. I'm talking about the full on masculine, in-your-face drag queens. Like the very one of Ireland's national, like, well, he's kind of an underground national hero. Was a guy called Mr. Pussy, and Mr. Pussy was the first drag queen I'd ever seen. I'd never seen him in person, but he used to play in. You see, drag queens were huge among the working class in the 1970s on these islands. Danny LaRue. Mr. Danny LaRue was the big star in Britain, the big drag, and he was Irish as well. It was the most amazing thing. All the drag queens were Irish, and he was a big Irish guy, British Irish guy, London Irish, and he was a huge star in Britain. And here in Ireland, we had Mr. Pussy. You're talking about the height of like Holy Catholic Ireland, where the church controlled a lot. Well, it was losing its control when I was a little kid, but it was still, a big deal. And there in like the neighborhood I was in, a tough working class, neighborhood filled with IRA guys, the Saturday night act in the nightclub that everyone would go and see and love was Mr. Pussy, a huge drag queen, and he's still a star today, and he's like, and the pictures of him with the makeup, it was a cabaret act. They used to have great cabaret acts in those places when I was a kid. He had one called Dracula, which is a guy who used to carry him out in his coffin. He was often played with Mr. Pussy. And they'd bring the coffin on the stage and he'd play the music and he'd rise out and all the women, it would fog and all the women would be screaming and everything. And then he'd chase them around the pub and stuff like that around the nightclub. Well, Mr. Pussy and him played together. Magic, motherfuckers. This is magic. This is the kind of world I grew up. This is why I feel sorry for kids who think that things like the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist thing and all that stuff today is cool. What I grew up, it was unbelievably cool by comparison. And I can remember seeing, I never saw him, I was too young to get in the pubs then, but I saw his poster outside the pub, the Penthouse in Ballymun, and it was just Mr. Pussy live tonight, and he would sing all the songs. And I mean, these guys were characters that were accepted. Why? Because they spoke to something in the ancient working class Dubliners that brought us all the way back to the Satyrs when we were under the Vikings. The same thing. And that's what Priscilla Queen of the Desert, that scene was. Drag queens have a phenomenal psychic charge, a phenomenal magical charge. And you go, and especially when you talk to them and they're having, I mean, I'd had a conversation with drag queens and they're just having a regular conversation talking about like something like the landlord pissed them off or there's something at work. And you're talking to this guy and he's sitting there, he's smoking a cigarette and he's like in a pub or something when you are outside a bar and you're just having a chat with him. And it's like, it's amazing. When I went to Manchester and did the film on the Pusher, I went into the gay village in Manchester. There was drag queens everywhere. And it was this magical environment. And I was talking to some lads there, no, drag queens. And again, when you're talking about them, when you're having a chat with them in the pub about just bullshitting with them, it's just beyond powerful. This is why people travel down. This is why queer bashers go down to gay neighborhoods and attack gays, because they fear that the powerful charge that things like drag queens and leather boys and stuff. See, often the only place, especially in America, when I first got there, America was outside New York and a few other cities, incredibly conservative. The only place you would have a sense of powerful psychic charge would be the trash magic found in gay communities. There's an example of that. Just look at that scene in Priscilla, the Queen of the Desert. Terence Stamp and the other two guys in the drag, and just observe and let the magical charge of the intensity, especially when you saw that on the big screen, wash over you. That's a classic example of how it's all good and it's all great stuff, because it transforms you from the average into the supernatural. You go down like a band. I remember seeing Hawkwind, a Hawkwind concert. I remember seeing Queen and Freddie Mercury in them on the jazz tour as a kid. I can remember seeing so many concerts like that just launched me into different places. Even Skinny Puppy, I think at the China Club in New York back in the late 80s. They would have this amazing, I was a big fan of Skinny Puppy at the time. And the stage set and the noise, and they're doing songs like Maggots and the Big Hair. And, all that kind of Sister Mercy when I was back in the day when Andrew Endres was the singer. You were transformed. This is trash magic, and that's all comes from the Bowie, Alice Cooper, the Theatre of the Macabre, cabaret, that kind of thing. And this is important stuff. We're always hit by trash magic. When Toulouse-Lautrec made his posters in Paris for bicycles, he became a famous artist because the posters for bicycles that he made were being stolen by people because they were just the colors and everything affected people. That was a magic charge that made him a star. Keith Haring in New York, the poor guy died young of AIDS, but he became famous because he got the contract to make posters about commuting for New York Transit. They were put inside the subway cars of these posters of those kind of moving people, and all these hip hop kids from like Harlem and the Bronx started stealing the posters, and that made Keith Haring a, an overnight sensation in art just by an accidental connection that something about this artwork really appealed to these like ghetto kids, and because it was a something, it was a charge. There was a charge there in it. I mean, it may not do anything for you, but it did something for them, and it changed the world. And this is trash magic. Trash magic is accidentally unleashing of forces. It accidentally unleashes of forces, and that's a great. And it's not necessarily a negative thing. Now we also have this might be a long show tonight, so brace yourself. I'm absolutely in the zone today, and so like back to the Pizzagate thing before we get to the Lady Gaga stuff. Back to the Pizzagate thing. There's very interesting articles appearing now in the wake of this, and I found loads off my own websites that I posted in the past that I've completely forgotten about, and I just posted the day to that article on Facebook. And in the wake of the Father John Misty, This Is Sally Hatchet music video that someone sent to me yesterday with the pizza sliced into the pentagram shape, inverted pentagram pointed at the viewer. But there was this Maria Abramovich. Someone sent me a poster of a gala she was at with Hollywood celebrities from a website called Sling. I think it's called SLIMG, Slimag or something. I will, of course, put the link below so you can see these remarkable pictures. And it has all these Hollywood stars who are attending a gala event where basically they watch a symbolic human being being eaten. Now, what strikes me about this, before I say anything, I have a friend here who's a Satanist. Well, he's an ex-Satanist, and a lovely guy, great family man. Couldn't fault the man in any way. Really nice guy, but he's a bit conspiratorial. He's a bit out there for me on a few things, but he's not as conspiratorial about everything. Just on a couple of things. And what he is into, he's big into the chemtrails thing. He's convinced there is geoengineering going on. I don't get involved in that. It doesn't interest me. The one thing he does talk about that no one else talks about is cannibalism. He is convinced that cannibalism is what everything from global warming to animal rights to veganism is lead to Monsanto to poor food quality, that they're trying to lead us towards cannibalism. And the reason he gives for this is that he says cannibalism was commonly practiced in early human beings, and it was probably cannibalism that jumped us from low intelligence to high intelligence, because there was a regular steady supply of easy meat, and eating the people around you doesn't does is actually has great health benefits. And he has this one book that was about written by a British anthropologist in the 1930s who lived with cannibal tribes in Africa and New Guinea, and he spoke about the remarkable health of these people and the remarkable. Don't ask me the name of the book because it was hard to read actually. And these guys was talking about it when he tasted flesh from the different parts of the human body, and he said that what he found was his own health and strength suddenly increased when he started eating human flesh and drinking human blood. And these people were incredibly strong, incredibly active, even though they were primitive in a kind of a, shall we say, a technological sense, they were very adapted living in the wild. They were very healthy, didn't have any illnesses or anything. And he attributed this to cannibalism. And then he goes off on things talking about like how cannibalism was far more normal throughout society than people realize. And he even made references to Jesus, the body of Christ, and all this was references to this kind of idea. Now, I don't go along with any of that. But what I noticed about a lot of these people who attend these celebrities, and I know the celebrities have got plenty of money and they can have all kinds of, makeup and workouts and all kinds of like makeovers, but how incredibly well they all look. And your man Podesta had that look about him. This kind of like guy who's in his 50s with the physique of a 25-year-old and the kinetic bodily energy of a young person, the same kind of energetic vibe. Now, before you say to yourself, how could they get anyone to eat human flesh? Well, they've got lots of you truthers drinking human piss, drinking your own piss. So don't say it can't happen. Urine therapy and all that kind of thing. Now, this party that she had, this one Maria's part, a cult gala. It shows again a bunch of celebrities. But what struck me is that there's big time vegan celebrities like Pamela Anderson. Now, Pamela Anderson doesn't have a problem with a woman. The link's below again. Look at the link. Don't just listen to me. With a woman being, symbolically eaten. Basically, it's a head stuck out through a meat and cake body, and they cut into it. And there's all these. You just go down the list, and it's just one beautiful looking woman or man after the next. Good looking people, and they have human heads sticking out of the table to look like they're heads that have been served for food. And they have this kind of pasty faced strain. A lot of them tend to be kind of like pasty faced males. And it's your classic decadent thing. And at the end of the hall is a big thing saying an artist should not make himself into an idol, which is a lot of bullshit because it's a female artist behind this one. So it's not that he should make himself into an idol. She should make herself into an idol. And then they're eating with all these human heads in front of them, and all these people are trying to look cool and fashionable. And there she is cutting this flesh open off this woman. It's really incredibly unbelievable. The photographs are very high quality. It's a classic trash magic occult ritual. It's not real. It's performance art moving into. It has strong homosexual overtones. All the celebrities, so many celebrities there. They all look really great. It looks a lot. It looks like another version of that Rothschild, that famous Rothschild party where they're wearing all these weird hats and everything. It looks like that kind of thing, but brought up to date. And they're all there. Yeah, Hollywood, everyone. And they have these kind of like Chippendale dancer type guys stripping down the bodies. It's a big cake. And we saw this stuff before. In fact, she's not even original. There's Pamela Anderson there, looking very strange as usual. And maybe she's pro vegan and leave the animals alone, but she doesn't have a problem with human flesh being hacked into. And this could tie in with that idea as well. And there, it's just ridiculous. It's decadent. It's over the top. Everyone's having a great time, and all these people there are enjoying it. And one is a woman who looks like her chest has been carved open, and a hand has been inserted in to look like it's giving the finger. And they're just like silly, annoying people. Many, many, many beautiful women there. The women are all gorgeous. I mean, so many gorgeous women in these pictures. Is this where people? We have people like Kenneth Anger. See, another link below. Old time conspiracy. Before this stuff all came out, right before all this rubbish came out, in the old days, you had magazines like Confidential, and you had people like Kenneth Anger who wrote the book Hollywood Babylon, himself a practicing magician. And when those books came out, they were called absolute filth and stupid and rubbish by the likes of the New York Times, even though every single story in them could be verified and was true, such as the silent movie actor superstar Fatty Arbuckle murdering a girl with his penis. He hit her so hard with his penis during a sex and cocaine orgy in San Francisco that he actually ruptured into her internal organs, and she died of septicemia, Hollywood starlet. And this was all true, but the New York Times, just like it's knocking Pizzagate, said that this book should be trashed. And Hollywood Babylon is an amazing book. You had Confidential magazine. Confidential magazine functioned in the same way that websites of conspiracy function today, that they told us about things like Juan Perón had a 14-year-old girlfriend on the side and all this kind of stuff. And it showed who were the degenerates in Hollywood. And all of it was true. All of it was true. But at the time, people would say, oh, don't read that trash mag. None of it is real. You see, that's the other side. That's almost like the counterspell of trash magic. It's not real. Not it doesn't real. So the counterspell of trash magic is the New York Times saying that Kenneth Anger's Hollywood Babylon, even though every word of it inside of it is true, is a pile of garbage. It's also the New York Times today saying that Possesta and the Pizzagate Comet Ping Pong Pizza thing is all rubbish. It's conspiracy theory, and it just goes on. The beat goes on, and nothing changed. Remember, as much these magazines, like these newspapers, like the Guardian, like the New York Times, like Salon, even though they function in a kind of a leftist mandate, a liberal mandate, the real purpose of those magazines, newspapers, is to protect the depravity and the wickedness of the power structure. That's all it is. And so there's her, what you call, there's Abramovich's thingy, and it's just all there. And this is nothing new. And I went through my articles and I found an article here, which again posted below. Please visit Tuesday, June 16th, 2015. Is trendy veganism the final stage before trendy cannibalism? How soon before we are on the menu at the dinner tables of progressives as punishment for our carbon footprints? Ironically, I see more and more vegans are suggesting, mainly sardonically, that we should eat other humans, poor working class ones of course, rather than eating animals. Apparently this idea that humans are not part of nature, pushed by the likes of Greenpeace and the pet murdering PETA, is now people for the ethical treatment of animals, is now firmly embedded within the human psyche to the point whereby most people automatically assume it to be so. Not only are humans now considered unnatural, we are also considered a deadly malignant tumor upon the planet. Of course, this is not applied to the likes of Prince Charles. And then the article just goes on. You can read it on there below, and it's it shows the famous thing of the woman eating the black woman cake in Sweden a few years ago, being eaten by a Swedish foreign minister, while it screamed, this kind of thing. And I have a thing that a roast turkey costume from like some website like Etsy or something. And I wrote at the end, socially accepted cannibalism would tie in very nicely with everything from population reduction, transhumanism, and onto their sacred and infantile infallible global warming. Sorry, I mean climate change. Even the I love to abort babies for my freedom style radical posh feminism sits in nicely here. And you can read that article, but it's like, it's again, I was like a year or two ago writing all these articles, and now it's becoming in front of us. Another one I've written here from 2014, Tuesday, November 2014. Why all this human infant themed food lately? And I have pictures in an article about all these baby cakes that are made incredibly realistic cakes of babies, and all these stupid housewives in suburbia all saying, I want one, it's so cute, and all this kind of thing. And then there was another article on, just keep coming up here, from Saturday, the 9th of November 2013, aristocratic privilege, murder, blood drinking, and cannibalism and sacrifice. And it's an article about the famous Countess Dracula, known as Countess Elizabeth Bathory, in Hungary and Bohemia. There's a painting there. It's not her, but it's just that it's some other place. But to give you an idea, that the aristocrats and even the British royals up until 200 years ago dined on human flesh. One of the Ireland's biggest exports in the 1700s was human skulls. Human skulls were exported from Ireland to other countries where they were ground down, powdered, and eaten as a food by the wealthy. You think that's mad? So you think Pizzagate is mad when we actually have this in the past? This is stupid. You people who are come on and say this is far fetched or it's conspiracy theory. This is stupid. You are. Another article from a blog, Tuesday the 14th of July 2016, clothes and fashion items made from human skin. And an artist called Tina Gorjank, a wildly ambitious student at the Central St. Martin's in London, has proposed a rather art fashion design idea to use lab-grown human skin as a fabric. Well, lab-grown for now. Funny how that all ties into with the whole thing of the English 5-pound notes having animal fat on them. And it just goes on and on and on. The trash magic has two purposes. The trash magic is to acclimatize you or familiarize you with this bullshit, but it's also to take the shock factor away. You see, it's like it's to it's been going on a long time. Remember the movie Silent Green? But Silent Green, we were expecting it to. Silent Green, it was pushed through in a very kind of trashy way. But this is pushing it. Everything comes through art. Remember that. Everything comes through art. From Carl Jung has said this, Nietzsche said this. Every development that happens with going forward comes through art. Art is the way the artists have the ability, like I said in the video, to hack the matrix, move forward in time, get a glimpse of the future, come back, paint it, draw it, write a story about it, make a movie about it. It's not predictive programming. It's it's magic. It's magic. Now, the ultimate exponent of trash magic today is Lady Gaga. Now, Lady Gaga is someone I feel sorry for. I know you're saying, wow, she's a big, powerful millionaire woman. This woman is not in control. Now, I want to read you a section I wrote on her from my book, my 2012 book, The Animal of the Psyche. The section in the book on page 43 is called Born This Way or Brilliantly Engineered. In recent times, the non-stop media obsessions with celebrities would appear to be something of a social epidemic, which is precisely what the lords of perception want, a population which is being deluded into thinking that the celebrities they adore are as real to them, if not even more real and vital, than the actual individuals they encounter within their own lives. Lady Gaga's Little Monsters is a prime example of this engineered erotomania in young adults and of both sexes. As Lady Gaga's image has been brilliantly cultivated by her handlers to be neither male or female in terms of her sexuality, she garnishes hysterical adoration from both young, often closeted homosexual men and young women, insecure about their own physical attractiveness. The lords of perception won't let any psychoeconomic resource go untapped. And they know just what it takes to capture and hold a specific demographic, using methods and tools that have been around for thousands of years. In the same manner in which Edward Bernays so effectively utilized the psychoanalytical philosophies of his uncle Sigmund Freud in order to capitalize on the diseases of the personality to target the psychology of countless millions using propaganda and sexual insecurities, the same methodologies have also been implemented to utilize mythological and similar archetypes for the same reason. Often, this is purely by accident, whereby the advertisers, marketers, and image makers stumble deep into the archetypal core of the human personality and often with spectacular success. Lady Gaga's artistry is essentially musically non-descriptive. However, the people behind her image absolutely know precisely what they are doing. At some level, either she, her management, handlers, and image makers have demonstrated there is a real understanding of how to tap into this esoteric resonance of the human condition in order to make her a modern idol. Lady Gaga's entire image is visually and brilliantly mythological. Her people have obviously looked deep into the esoteric knowledge of the collective and classical canon. Her stage sets are temples, while her photo shoots are filled with deep rooted esoteric and psychoanalytical symbolism, which cuts right to the core of her fans' individual psyche. In the case of Lady Gaga, none of this can be a result of coincidence or lucky marketing, for it is far too esoterically specific. Her image and persona thus far has mainly been a homage to the archetypal personas of the Egyptian goddess Isis and the lunar deity Hathor, guide to the secret land of the dead queen of the West, who was also Hecate in the Greek canon. Lady Gaga's appearance at an event dressed in a gown made from flesh of dead animals was tapping into the archetype of Hathor, invoking her allegory on behalf of the dead and dying. There are also several photo shoots of Gaga and stage sets where she is purposely placed between the dualistic pillars of positive and negative power, according to the esoteric doctrine upon which the universe is founded, representing, absorbing, and unifying the opposing energies of the cosmos. In Hebrew mysticism, this can be also viewed as the Kabbalistic demon known as the Shekinah, linking the twin pillars of cognitive functioning, the conscious and the unconscious personality of her fans, stage magic in every sense of the word. Lady Gaga's persona deeply aligns with an esoteric resolution of duality of the feminine element within man, or the anima, hence why urban legends rumors are deliberately circulated that Lady Gaga has a penis or that she is a transsexual or transgender person in real life. This also reveals another brilliant aspect to her persona, as the hysterical dangers of the feminine element within should always remain and be misunderstood. Hence why she remains a mystery beyond the persona. She is to be adored and feared. In the previous age she was Hecate or Lilith, ruler of demons, little monsters, the mistress of illusions, who seduces and then devours her suitors and lovers. The archetypes are utilized and tapped into in the same way our ancestors used everything from mythology to children's fairy tales to explore any iconography or motifs which may help lead us to the truth of our own inner subconscious experiences. These days, the objectives are crude and commercially driven, but they are spawned from the same allegorical and mythological lineage. The function of all myth is to use the narrative to look for the meanings. Unfortunately, in these times, our celebrity idols provide these explorations within their own public image rather than their fans doing it for themselves. As Joseph Campbell once stated, myth is just another person's religion, allowing us to balance the outer world with our inner world of dreams, feelings, and inclinations. These deep rooted aspects of the human psyche are the persona and archetypes that Lady Gaga is tapping into with her music videos and concerts, in precisely the same way advertisers tap into the insecurities and class consciousness of the consumer. It's just business, but very, very, very clever business. The lords of perception have been visiting the same watering holes for a very long time indeed. To a lesser degree, similar psychoanalytical dynamics can be witnessed in everything from political activists to sports team supporters, tapping deep into the archetypal consciousness of the masses. Consider the names and logos of these sports clubs. Esoteric symbols and motifs are very prevalent, especially in European soccer clubs and stadia, hallowed turf, such as the towers of the old Wembley Stadium in London and the San Siro in Milan. This cultivated obsession and then often media engineered hatred of the idol ensures a healthy supply of new celebrities the fans to obsess over, not to mention the resulting continuous and perennial cash flow into the entertainment and sporting industries. The temples and cathedrals of today are now the concert halls and stadium, which is why so many evoke the names of classical elements: Odeon, Forum, Orpheum, Apollo, and so on. And that's from my book, The Anvil of the Psyche. Right back then, I was very, very interested in Lady Gaga, and she immediately caught my attention. Two reasons. One, she came out of absolutely nowhere. Two, her music was absolutely garbage. Her music is complete and total trash. But three, in the very early days, someone had posted a video of her where she was just a pretty, like, Italian American girl playing a piano and singing like a regular love song while wearing a nice dress, like evening gown. And that was what really got me interested in her, because then I realized that Lady Gaga was a creation, not of her, but of her handlers. They just saw this girl who could sing, play music, and they did a Marilyn Manson. I have to laugh at people who think that Marilyn Manson is some kind of real gothic revolutionary. He's a complete product as well, but she was the female version of that. The gender switching. Now, there's nothing wrong with female acts evoking kind of gender switching things. And Marlene Dietrich, she did that wearing kind of men's suits back in the day. That's why she featured in that Bowie video, Boys Keep Swinging. There's nothing wrong. It's very powerful. We all loved Annie Lennox when the Eurythmics first came out, and she dressed like that. And then there was the Grace Jones, Slave to the Rhythm, and that whole period in the early '80s where she crossed those worlds as well. But the difference between them and Lady Gaga is they actually had product of quality. Lady Gaga hasn't. They don't even bother finding the music for anyone anymore. It's purely about the response to the act, to the bling. Now, in the past, you had someone as fantastic as David Bowie, being Major Tom, Aladdin Sane, Ziggy Stardust, and you'd have those album covers like the covers of Diamond Dogs, which are quite shocking for the time, and even that intense haircut he had, where he dyed his head kind of orange and pointed it upwards, real almost spiky, but like a kind of he was being electrocuted, and then these This was powerful, and it was Freddie Mercury in his outfits too. Back when Queen started, it was equally powerful. All if you look at the images of Roxy Music, and you see what like Brian Eno looked like and how they dressed, it was all over the place. But this was the trash magic of glam rock. Glam rock was a very magical musical time, and that's why when in the modern antiquarian, when Julian Cope says that the ancients were probably more like glam rockers than cavemen. The ones who built the megaliths, I completely concur and agree with that. Absolutely 100%. You can't do magic dressed like you're going to chop down wood. You must evoke the charge by dressing up, blinging it out, and bringing the unreality into reality, the super reality out of normality, and normality into the transcendental manifestation beyond the present experience. And art, nothing like art, nothing does that like art, especially things like glam rock and stuff like that. Now, what's the difference between Lady Gaga and, say, David Bowie? Well, David Bowie was directly involved in the occult. We know around the time of Cracked Actor. You look at interviews. I want to talk about like Lady Gaga. When you see Lady Gaga interviewed, she just comes across as a very nervous, terrified young girl trying to act cool. So it's not real. She has no control. When I wrote the amble of the psyche, the jury was out on whether she was in charge or whether she was being manipulated. Of course, now after seeing her interviewed, she didn't do many straight up interviews back then. But I saw her on Howard Stern, and the Howard Stern show was fantastic because Howard Stern, being a jester archetype, very much the world's foremost until the arrival of Donald Trump. Howard Stern is the world's foremost jester archetype, and he's very good at getting the real person to come out. And he got the real Lady Gaga to come out in one interview, and what you saw was a girl, a very likable and nice young lady who's trying to live up to being this thing that she isn't. And by God, there's a price to pay for that. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Bowie, on the other hand, a nice guy as well. Anyone I know met him always said he was a lovely man and didn't have a bad word to say about him. But he had experiment when around the time the Cracked Actor, well, that tour, he was in the back. It takes place. It was around the same time The Man Who Fell to Earth movie came out. He was living in LA. He was running with some very dodgy characters. It was a hell of a lot of drugs. His marriage was on the rocks to Angie Bowie, and he was living in LA. He living in Beverly Hills, and in the video, the tour film for that, you see him doing Cracked Actor on the stage by French kisses like Yorick from Hamlet in this movable chair. Fantastic tours, by the way. The only time he really comes to life is when he's on stage. The rest of the time, he looks absolutely dreadful. He looks because he was drinking heavily. He was on drugs. He was not. He was not in control. A lot of that had to do. We found out now is because he was doing magic. He was using Crowley rituals to invoke a water demon in his accidentally, by the way, in his swimming pool in Beverly Hills. There's a program I've done about that, Velocity of Now. I'll put the link again below. We're going to have a lot of links down there. And where that happens. And he's paying the price because he's going there. He's doing it. And also he's paying the price because his art is real. You understand? Like Bowie was not manipulated by anyone. When Bowie was Aladdin saying Ziggy Stardust, Major Tom, that was David Bowie's invention. It wasn't invented by a Simon Cowell type behind the scenes. It was art from within. So it was magic. It wasn't trash magic. It was real. It came from inside. And he also had experiments with the occult. So he went there and he experimented in all the arts, painting, sculpture, acting, singing, music creation. He did it all, including the ultimate art of magic. And that's why Bowie survived. And that's why Bowie went on to become the most cherished star of, pop star of our generation, and probably forever will be, beyond anyone. Yeah. He's probably the only pop star who'll probably be able to make records from the grave and transmit them back into this reality. That's how amazing he was. Lady Gaga could not be more opposite. She is a product. She's no different than a boy band. She's no different than a girl band. She's no different than the Spice Girls. She's no different than Miley Cyrus, another tragic case, who seems like a very nice young girl as well, young lady. And these these trash magicians behind the scene who understand the power but don't get the feeling, because a lot of them would be kind of psychopathic or pathological individuals. They would be like the Podestas and people like that, and Alphatus, and these kinds of people, and these weirdos and creeps, and they like money, they like power, they like sex, and they like manipulating people like Lady Gaga. She's not that bright. Now, there'll always be a price to pay when you do this, because when you evoke magical forces, as I said, if you're not looking for it, it'll come looking for you, because you set off alarm bells and flares into the non-material world, and the entities will come looking for you. And this is often why a lot of these people like Sid Barrett, and a lot of them, Peter Green, the song that he did with Fleetwood Mac about the Green Manalishi, that's about a demon that came to visit him. If you're in the game but you don't know how to play the game, you'll be torn to pieces. And Lady Gaga is a classic example of that, and that's why I have a lot of sympathy for her. Now, I remember the meat dress, the whole thing. That was not her idea. You'll see it in the profile pic for this. That was not her idea. She was told to do that. Now, the whole Hillary Clinton thing. She gets on the stage dressed like Bob Geldof in The Wall, like they call it a Nazi uniform, a totalitarian uniform. She did not think that out. That was somebody told her to do that. And she looked ridiculous, and it was one of the things that cost Clinton the election. You see, because I'm telling you, the US election of 2016 was between two magical schools. The Trump magical school, which played heavily on jester magic and satirical magic and other kinds of things, and the Hillary Clinton magical school, which played on the depraved, Savalesque, Pizzagate, Lady Gaga, trash magic. And guess what? It failed miserably. It failed miserably because the jester will always defeat the king and the queen. The Joker is always the last card put back in the deck. The jester is always the one in court who lives to die of old age. Most powerful magic on the planet is jester bardic magic. And Trump was the king of that. Absolute unmitigated king. And he brought that out there. All Hillary Clinton could do was the same old crap. And you saw how she deteriorated towards the end of the election and during it. That world is over. As I said at the beginning of the show, reality is tearing itself asunder. Get with the program, get educated, get wise, get sensible, and deal with it. Don't be sensationalist. I'm not trying to scare the shit out of you. There's no reason why you should be scared of anything. This is fantastic. You have been lied to by your truth gurus who told you that the Great Awakening would be the masses getting up and standing on their feet and overthrowing the elites. Bullshit. The Great Awakening was people with artistic or magical inclinations going actively to war. To war. People like me. I've aged so much since I've written the Puzzling People book. I look like an old man compared to how I looked back 7 years ago. I have been at war. I have been at war with these people. Others like me have been at war. This is why I joke. This is why I laugh. This is one of my weapons, telling jokes and satire. Stupid people don't understand that. Intelligent people do. The intelligent people are the ones who are tearing this reality to bits. And the masses are useless. They're never going to wake up. And we don't want them to wake up because they'd throw us into the fucking ovens the first chance they would get. So fuck the masses. We don't want those animals waking up. They are like animals, most of them. All you have to do is look at Black Friday. What we want to do is wake up ourselves and then from that create a new reality. We have reached a tipping point, but it's not any kind of rainbow unicorn. We reached the state of convergence. We have reached the state where we are now one with the universe. No, we were the barbarians at the fucking gates who had to rip the gates down, run inside, and rip the fucking elites to pieces. It was war. It was not a great awakening. It was a fucking battle. A battle. And people like me were in the fucking front line hard end of it and paid an enormous price doing it and being there. And so have many of you. You've lost family members, your friends at work, but you woke up eventually and you said to yourself, this is part of the process. And you got with it. Well, we have won. But what we're standing in is a devastated landscape. This is what wars are like. There's no fucking rainbow unicorns flashing all around you right now. There's no, vegan fucking sprites dropping tofu rain on you. There's no fluffy bunnies around your feet. You're living in a destroyed fucking landscape because the war has ended. Do you understand? You won. But what have you left around you? A shattered reality. A shattered reality. And now it's time to build the new reality. And this is where the hard work really begins. Winning the war is easy. Winning the peace is hard. And there's only one thing that does this. Fucking work. Working your ass off. Making your life better for yourself and the ones you love. For your family members. For your children. For your friends. For your lovers. For the people you care about. Your pets. Your animals. That's what you're going to have to do now. And did you think there was going to be fluffy bunnies in a great awakening and all this fucking bullshit of Schumann resonance? Fucking bullshitters. We will be one with the universe. We will have sacred geometry. My fucking dick will arrange itself into the fucking metachron. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Show me one change in reality for the better that didn't involve turmoil and convulsions of pain. When you were born, your mother was fucking screaming at the doctor, calling him a cunt. Probably the first thing she ever heard was your mother screaming at your father. The first thing you ever heard. Or screaming at the doctor, you fucking cunts! Ah! That was the first fucking thing you heard. And that brought you into this world. Your mother's agony, blood, and placenta, and the umbilical cord, and all this thing done. That's why all these kids are being born in birthing pools, and with these crazy new age families. I do wonder about that. I think the charge that your potential as a human being is caused by the charge that was caused by your birth. I can remember a woman telling me that she had 3 sons. 2 of them were absolute morons, and one of them was a genius. And she told me something that always stayed with me. She said the one that was born, the kid who the most difficult labor she had was the kid who grew up to be a genius. The 2 morons practically fell out of her, and he wasn't the first either. So there's a charge there. There's a charge. There's supposed to be, this is why women having babies, you better be prepared. You're gonna be screaming in agony, and that agony will be the birth of a decent child. So show me anything where everything is torn to pieces and begins again. There's devastation everywhere. Show me one thing. Show me one fucking thing in the universe that is the result of birth, of any kind of anything that doesn't involve trauma or destruction or decay or killing of something else. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You are living in the precipice of absolute destruction. Anything that we have in terms of balance and all this stuff, that's all artificial. If you don't like what I'm saying, go away. Go back to your fluffy bunnies. Go back to your sacred geometry. Go back to your fucking unicorns. And then when you're committing, you better cut your throat or jump off a chair or rope around your neck. Then come back to me before you do that. Because I've got news for you. Everything is a price to pay. And this brings us back to Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga's price to pay. Because she was involved in this trash magic world, because she became a multi-millionaire at the at the fucking at the servitude of these bastards in showbiz, because she has no talent as a musician. Well, she can sing, but she's no genius, right? She's nothing. She's completely invented, right? The price will be paid. And this is an article from a magazine called Digital Journal, and it came out in 2012. And I'd never. It's funny. It came out around the same time that the Amble of the Psyche did, and it's called Lady Gaga enlists spiritualist Deepak Chopra to rid her of her demons. Well, Chopra's not a spiritualist. We'll talk about that later. If you're really rich and fame helps, you don't have to go to just any spiritualist when you need to realign your chakras. If you're Lady Gaga, for example, you get to go on top of the spiritual heap and get one-on-one. And this is exactly what happened to Lady Gaga has done. At least that's the word from MTV and the Times of India and other media. According to an interview that seems to have originated within the Daily Star, the fame monster, there you go, believes that the devil is haunting her in her sleep, and she turned to Deepak Chopra, the world's most renowned spiritualist, which he isn't, to help get rid of the horned one. Now this is amazing. Lady Gaga and Deepak Chopra. Chopra is the guy who helped Michael Jackson cope with his fame. Look what happened there. And fame is something that Lady Gaga obviously has in spades. She's famous, she's some talent. The worldwide phenomenon that is Lady Gaga is having nightmares, and they are currently based around her being pulled in different directions in a rather violent way. This is why she wore the meat dress. All her handlers are using her as meat. You understand? And they're ripping her apart in order she is in the abattoir. She's being processed into little monster burgers. Chopra's advice: he seems to have told her to just go with the flow. And here's what she says: I have this recurring dream where there's a phantom in my home, and he takes me into a room, and there's a blonde girl with ropes tied to her limbs, pulling her apart. Gaga said. Does she even need to know what that means? I told Deepak the dream was so terrifying I thought somehow that a devil force was trying to take hold of me. He laughed and told me that I should learn to embrace my own insanity. Chopra, don't worry, be happy. Oh, there we go. In the interview, she accented that the 65-year-old Chopra advice wasn't about to change, no matter how grave Lady Gaga painted the situation as being. I told him the devil is trying to take me, Deepak. I'm a good girl. I believe she is too. She said, and I bet Miley Cyrus is having these dreams. That's why she was bawling her eyes out when Hillary Clinton lost. That she's looking for other outlets to cure herself. He said not to worry. She did not say if she's taken his advice or not. Gaga is working with Chopra, she said, on levitating. I want to go into a coma and levitate. I'm a very spiritual person, and God love her. And Deepak is the most influential person in my life. His message is the true inspiration. He helps me to reach inside my spirituality and take it to the next level. It helps to have money to take to the next level. No? Well, let me tell you about Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra's early work is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I have nothing but praise for his work on the Vedas, on the sacred sounds work. It's some of the best work out there of its kind. He educated millions of people in this stuff, and then the demons got him. They got him. And now all he cares about now is money and Oprah and fame and celebrities, and he's moving in the wrong kinds of circles, and he's lost. He's gone. He's lost. But I've no use for him now, but let's not distract from the fact that there was once a time when Deepak Chopra was fantastic, right? We'll give him that. Lady Gaga is literally being haunted by demons. She has created an autonomous complex of her own inability and own lack of talent, and this is manifesting itself as a demonic force that is trying to enter her life. And this is why she is the way she is. And I would not be, and it's very sad to say, I would not be surprised if she dies young. She talks about going into a coma and learning how to levitate. This is because the entity that's trying to get into her wants her to remove her spirit force, her life force, in a kind of, her astral body, should we say, out of her own body, and the demon to move in and take over. And I do wonder if that's happened. I do wonder if the Lady Gaga of that then in 2012 and the Lady Gaga of now are two different entities. Maybe she did learn to levitate and her astral corpse is lost somewhere in the astral realms. Astral corpse are real, by the way. We'll do another show on that. And what's left behind is the entity that was trying to get her in her dreams has now replaced her. And that's the one who stood on stage dressed in a totalitarian uniform, endorsing the wicked and psychotic monster, Hillary Clinton. This is how dark this stuff is. This is how dark it is. So that's probably what happened there. He's also been polluted as well. That's why he's probably also been replaced also. That's why he probably said, oh, go with the flow. Don't worry. Be happy. This kind of thing. Let it just happen, bitch. And they jumped in as well. This is why I don't ever want to be around these Hollywood people. I have a few celebrity friends, including one or two really, really famous ones. And I don't tell anybody who they are. I keep it low key. I speak to them now and again in Facebook, or I speak to them now and again in Skype and stuff like that. I recently, some of them people saw, like I was talking to Henry Rollins recently, and he wanted to know why I called him a shill, and I told him, he said, look, you're shilling for the Democratic Party, and that's the fucking end of it. And he was okay about it. He wasn't nasty or anything. But this is how it is. This is like, I don't want to be in that world. I don't want to be among those people. I wonder, I just don't know how these people hold their lives together. I don't know how the forces at the top are so dark. I mean, Kenneth Anger, just read Hollywood Babylon, and that would make you never want to be a superstar in that world. And even if you're a superstar in the world, do what other people have done and just get away from it. Don't live amongst it. Don't live in Beverly Hills. Don't live among them. Get out there and live in obscure places. Do things and then go back and do your tours and whatever. And a lot of rock bands seem to be very good at that. The rock musicians, like the real rock, the ones who are actually play and have talent and could write songs and have a real, ability, artistic ability, you generally find they don't live with other celebrities. They live in houses in the country. They live in apartments in cities. They keep a low profile when they're not on stage being a rock god and so on. Unfortunately, the movie and TV industry is the complete opposite. Part of that package is to be amongst the most infected tribes. So you're basically in a world where infection is highly, highly, possible. This is why they have all their awards ceremonies. This is why there's non-stop Golden Globes, Tonys, Oscars, British Film Awards, this, that, and the other, MTV Awards, Entertainment Magazine. It's all to get them together so they can infect the ones who are not infected. That's what that is. They can jump from one to the next. This is why it's fucking deadly. I mean, this is why you stay away from them. This is why when they become famous, they suddenly become incredibly uninteresting people, and all they start doing is this is why when someone starts out first, their work is fantastic, right? Their work is fantastic. Then they get a bit of fame, and people say, "Oh, they sold out. What? Their music is shit now. Everything." That's because they're not them anymore. They've been changed somehow. They've been changed. Very few of them have managed to keep it going. Very few. That's why if you're talented and you're brilliant, only demand a certain level of fame. Don't be a superstar. And if you're a superstar, be like Woody Allen and stay away from it. This is one of the reasons why Woody Allen, I think, was done for all that pedophilia stuff that was all lies, because he wasn't part of the Hollywood elite. He didn't go to Oscar awards when he was winning all those Oscars in the 70s. He didn't go. There's absolutely no proof that he was involved in pedophilia. His ex-wife, Mia Farrow, she's absolutely 100% Hollywood elite. And she was the one who made the false allegations against him. The demons want you. They want you in the game. Mia Farrow was almost, my theory of Woody Allen is that Woody Allen was not a pervert and was not a pedophile. And whatever autonomous complex was inside Mia Farrow from a Hollywood upbringing, wanted to drag him, was punishing him for not being a freak like the rest of them. A freak, you know what I'm saying? A freak like the rest of them. This is trash magic. This is trash magic. This is these people in Hollywood, in showbiz, particularly in movies and TV shows, are involved in a level of magic that's quite powerful, but it's trash because they don't know what they're doing. The ones who know, I'm sure there's many of them have learned the occult forces and they've managed to survive and get out of it or protect themselves, but most of them don't. And most of them end up drug addicts, suicidal, falling apart, washed up alcoholics, and in ruins. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, but it's a hell of a long way, a quick way to the bottom if you want to be a showbiz superstar. And even the ones who make superstar status, they all fall apart. Elvis, come on. Michael Jackson, Jesus Christ. Other ones turned around in different ways. But it's just, look at Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, those two young lads. It's awful. It's awful. But like, you just think about it. That's a dark world. That's a dark, dark world. There was that film I saw recently about the ballerina, Black Swan, I think it was called, with Natalie Portman, where she plays a ballerina who wants to be in Swan Lake. And because they're desperate to be famous so much, she invokes a demon inside her that transforms her into a swan. She wants to be the Queen Swan in Black Lake, but then she wants to die. She wants death. And she'll kill to get that because she's unleashed the autonomous complex, the demon within inside her. So, looking back at all this stuff, the Pizzagate stuff, everything, like I said at the beginning of the show, reality is being ripped to bits. We're finding out how the sorcery works. We, as magicians, shaman, witches, sages, and crones, are able to affect this, jesters especially. The jester archetype is very strong. My advice to people is right now, be very, very aware of humor and satire to protect yourself. Very aware of it. That includes dark humor and dark. That's why they said recently that people who are into dark humor are like mentally ill, or some article or something came out of that. That's because they're the most healthy people of all. This is how you protect yourself, satirical magic, but also throw yourself into your art. If you paint, you draw, if you do crafts, even if you do crafts, throw yourself into it. Just create. God, I've been saying to you from day one, create, because the psychopaths can't create. We can create the new world, and that's what we're doing. But don't be, we are waking up. We have reached convert. No. We have fought a vicious war. We are now involved in mopping up operations. And if you can't see that, then you're not paying attention. If you can see it, feck them if they can't take a joke. Next time.